The title of today's, title of today's webinar is Being Authentic from Prospect to Client, Marketing and Sales Strategies that Will Win You Business in 2022. And so Andy Neary and Ryan Miller are here today. Again, use that Q&A function if you've got questions. And I want to introduce these guys one at a time. They're old school friends. It's been really fun chatting with them, getting to know them, but I do want to allow each of them to introduce themselves. So Andy Neary, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and consider our audience today, the health insurance audience? What brings you here? Who are you?
Yeah, no, thanks, Gray. I appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. I've been in the industry 20 years, and my everything changed for me back in 2014 when I made a move from Wisconsin to Colorado, and I found myself trying to sell in a market where nobody knew who I was. And I gave myself two choices. I could do it the old-fashioned way, the way everybody was taught back then: pick up the phone, smile and dial, and go pound the pavement.
Right.
Or I could try something else, which was I leaned into building a personal brand. I had to get people to know me fast, far, and wide. And lo and behold, it worked. And so what I do today is I don't sell insurance anymore. I work with advisors and agencies and industry partners, helping them develop a brand message for their ideal prospect that gets the right prospects to raise their hand so they can win more business with less pipeline, with less prospects, but have more fun doing it at the same time by leaning into the brand. Because Gray, I think one thing that has changed more than ever in 2022 is people do not buy logos on business cards. They buy from humans. And so that's what I'm here to talk about today.
It's kind of like getting back to the basics, right? Being a salesperson.
Yes.
Awesome. So Andy's got a great history. Thank you, Andy. Ryan Miller's here today too. Ryan, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Awesome. Thanks, Gray. Super appreciate the opportunity to be here. So for me, I have spent now the last 22 years in a professional sales capacity. I started in the automotive aftermarket industry, manufacturing and distribution internationally. And so learned a lot about business as well as sales there. I went to work for a global publicly traded company in the early 2000s. And then really, I started my business in 2011 out of a desire to help teach people how to sell, but utilizing who they were as individuals. All of the training that I had ever been through, and that was everything from Sandler to Carnegie, Ziegler, which they were all phenomenal. I mean, so many great things out of every one of those, but every one of those taught people to sell based on using their system. And their system worked for some, but because everybody ticks differently, everybody has different skills, everybody has a different approach to how they communicate. I just felt like there needed to be some more customization. So that was the original desire to start teaching sales, to coach, to consult, to train, to speak. I fell into the insurance world in 2014. I was hired to consult for a regional insurance broker here in Southern California. And I quickly took a liking to the fact that there was insane opportunity to be successful, and yet the idea of selling in this industry was so difficult. So the last 7 years I've spent investing into this industry, consulting agencies, coaching brokers, and now my goal, while I absolutely want to help people generate revenue, is to help extract the very best out of who people are as individuals, to help them to produce the best outcomes in the roles that they serve as agency owners, as brokers, as partner sales professionals. And so I teach them how to brand, prospect, sell, communicate, and perform. But again, I'm teaching them foundational principles, but ultimately I'm trying to extract the best out of them.
Dang. I love it. So many great ideas, guys. Tons of stuff to talk about today. I know that being authentic is something that we really wanted to get into. And I do feel like just hearing from both of you, this is a good place to start. So I do want to just kind of start lobbing some questions. But before I get there, Heath, do you want to introduce yourself real quick and talk about anything?
Sure. Hey, everybody. Heath Potter here. I spent extra time combing my hair and trimming my beard for this video presentation, but apparently I'm not going to get to show that off. So this is something that that we started about a year and a half ago now, and really have enjoyed the Fireside Chat series. And having guests like Andy and Ryan on, or it's just a great opportunity to introduce these types of folks to the people that we work with every day. So appreciate having everybody on the call. Sorry about the complications in the video, and we'll get the Fireside Chat series going here for the 15th of February.
Thank you so much. I am actually just took control, and I am going to figure this out, but I do want to get a question out there while I figure it out. So, big backstory. Oh my gosh, look at that. That's beautiful. Fireside Chat series. We got Ryan Miller and Andy Neary here today. Super stoked. I want to hear some backstory, you guys. I want to talk about the context of how you got here. Okay. So again, you are talking about sales. You are talking about how to impact sales. And specifically in healthcare, this is a big business. We've got a lot of different folks coming at it from a lot of different directions. And, talking about authenticity, talking about how to be your best salesperson. I want to know, how can we make a positive impact in this industry? After all, this is healthcare. Aren't we all here for that reason, that we care about people? We care about the end result being that we have healthier individuals in our society. And so I kind of want to get your thoughts on this, guys. Andy, maybe you go first. Ryan, you want to jump in? Go for it.
Ryan, why don't you kick it off? I think I might have a good segue to what you want to say.
I love it.
I feel like Gray just lobbed a really dangerous softball right up when he said that.
Fair enough.
So I think that you said something really interesting there, Gray. And it's, aren't we all here because we care about health? And I don't think so.
Okay.
And I think that actually provides a unique opportunity for people that are listening right now, maybe watching at some point, that do care. So we're no fool to the fact that there is a significant financial opportunity available to every single person in this industry. It is one of the most lucrative industries to sell in. It's one of the most lucrative industries to own a business in. And we know that, right? I mean, if you're a successful salesperson, within 5 years, you can easily be making $300,000 plus a year. And by the time you've been in this industry for 7 to 10 years, you can be making 7 figures. And so, there is an allure to the financial opportunity. And I think, unfortunately, oftentimes that drags people in to executing on tactics and strategies that produce the best financial outcomes for them. I don't think that there's anything wrong with, I'm a capitalist at heart. I deeply believe that we should all desire to be successful, to provide for our families, to have fun, to go do things. But I think that there is a unique opportunity for those that are passionate about healthcare, that are passionate about driving better outcomes for employees that are going to the doctors, for the employers that are burning cash like they never have before. And so I guess I say all that to say, this is a great time for you to check your heart if you're listening right now. And again, I don't want to condemn any of you that are just here to just be financially successful. But if you deeply and passionately care about driving better health outcomes and driving better financial outcomes for the employer, I believe you have a significant advantage in this industry. You are more personable. You will connect at a heart level. I'll say this 50 times before we're done, but people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. And so when we can connect on that human to human level, and we can share our heart from a place of truly desiring to do the best for the people that we serve, I think we step into the arena with a far better advantage than those that are just simply after the money.
Oh, heck yeah. And I feel like it was good for you to make that distinction in the beginning. I look at it from roses and sunshine, and you're looking at it from hey, we're in business to make money, and individuals deserve to drive their, financial results and get excited about the capitalistic model that we have. And I agree with you, Ryan. And so I know that Andy has a bit to add to this. Andy, what do you want to add?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, because my epiphany, Gray, was about 8, 9, 10 years ago, when I found myself, you talk about what's your why? Why do you do what you do? What kind of impact are we having? And I realized that, here I am going out and delivering increases every year. And the reason for many of the increases was I had to tell their group they weren't healthy. And so my why really came into play when I realized, how in the hell can I go out and deliver renewals and tell these groups they're not healthy if I'm not living a life of health by myself?
Right.
And so that really was my calling card of, okay, I'm going to become an inspiration for others by taking care of me, because I'm in an industry that's about making sure people have access to care and are taking care of themselves. And so number one, it started with, what am I doing myself to lead by example? And as far as that why goes, I'm going to deliver a piece of bad news to everybody on the call.
Okay.
No one on this call is going to change the healthcare system. We go to these conferences and talk about, we got to change the system. Jeff Bezos couldn't change the system. Jeff Bezos isn't, you are. But here's the deal. You don't have to change one person's life.
Okay.
Inspire one company to actually fix their benefits. That's all you've got to do. And, I just was on a coaching call this morning, and one of my clients got to make a call to a gentleman who is sitting in a bed dying of terminal cancer. And all he was waiting for was a response to whether or not his disability claims were going to be paid. So his family was taken care of. And this agent got to make that call with positive news. That call will change that advisor's life. And because he inspired and impacted one. And so that's, Gray, that's the message I want to really deliver today is, don't think you need to change the system. Nobody is. Change one company, one person's life, and you're doing your job.
No, I love that. It totally makes sense. Someone who's fairly new to the business myself, we do struggle trying to make these big changes when really all it takes is just me having that one conversation to help somebody understand better what we're trying to do. Or, for me, I don't do sales, but I can see that sales, that importance of those conversations. I'm looking at some questions that I prepped for you guys. I loved our conversations last week. We talked a little bit about this huge shift that's happening. And I know that it's happening everywhere because of COVID, right? So COVID happened, everyone hung out at home for, a good year. Now we're getting back into conferences. You're seeing more interactions with, salespeople making calls in person, for example. These are just some theories I've got, right? So what has changed? What used to be the way we did business, and how has it changed over the last couple of years? And what changes do you see moving forward in our industry, specifically with sales?
I feel like you're just trying to tempt us to say something that's going to piss somebody off. And so here we go again. So
do it.
All like 100 and something people that are on this call right now, I'm apologizing ahead of time if you don't know me. I really do care about you and love you, but I want to be super straightforward and honest.
Okay.
So one of the things that COVID exposed in this industry was a significant amount of laziness and contentment as the result of a system that was printing money for them. And so let me just clarify that so I can be fair. So back in 2010, I wasn't a part of this industry, but when the Affordable Care Act ultimately finally began to play itself out in this industry, for the next 11 years, every single broker, every single agency owner was automatically benefiting from 10 to 15% commission increases every single year just by way of natural renewal. And so I'm not saying you weren't working hard. There was absolutely so many of you that were selling your butt off to try and win business, retain business. Complexity was through the roof. And so you were having to add in all these new systems and processes just to serve your existing clients. Like, it was a pain in the ass. I get that. But you could be successful by barely growing your business organically. And so COVID all of a sudden threw this huge wrench in, because for the first time for most of us, at least that we can remember recently, this was the first time that we hit an economic wall. Businesses were retracting, employers were laying off employees. Employers were too afraid to make changes because they didn't know what the hell was happening tomorrow to their business. On top of that, all of a sudden, We could no longer go out and just schmooze people by spending $250 on lunch for them to make them happy enough to keep working with us. Mm-hmm. And so the longer that we sat, and good Lord, I cannot believe we're coming up on 24 months in this pandemic, but we have sat and we have forgotten how to interact on a human to human level. And so when we couple really not having a strong sales and marketing process for the better part of the last 10 years, coupled with the fact that we forgot how to interact on a human to human level over the last 2 years, we are sitting in the midst of a recipe for disaster as salespeople. Because what do we do now? And how do we do it? How do we get back out there and prospect? And so I think, and I know Andy agrees with a lot of this because we've talked about this so much, but I think that we've now just all opened up our robes and we are bearing ourselves naked in front of the industry. And we're praying to God that somehow we've done just enough work to start to build ourselves back up.
No, I love it. Again, it kind of brings me back to that like old school. You think about what a salesperson does, and you're growing up as a kid, and you're thinking about that person going door to door with encyclopedias and how they get their work done. And I know that's not what you're doing, but at the same time, what I hear you saying is get back to the basics. Am I right?
Yeah. Andy, I mean, don't you think that like this has been one of the biggest challenges is getting people to kind of start back from the beginning again?
Well, I think a couple of things have happened. You know, it is hard to believe we were told 2 weeks and it's been 24 months, right? You know, sales is a game of who knows you, likes you, and trusts you. And I think what happened, to Ryan's point, is in sales and insurance, we were taught sales includes go out, network, buy your prospects lunch, go play golf with them, go do this, and that's how you win business. And nobody really took the time to build, you know, how do I get my prospects to know me and like me? And what I realized with the pandemic was it brought us close together. Here's what I mean. That CFO you've been trying to go after for the last 5 years has been so hard to get to. Guess what? He or she is going through the same thing you are now. And you and her are just alike. And this is why building a brand to me is more important today than it's ever been. In fact, there's a study that just came out, millennials, which by the way, are going to be our number one buyers in a very short period of time. They want a personal brand behind everything they buy today, whether it's an accountant, an attorney, or even an insurance salesperson. Mm-hmm. They don't want logos anymore. And so what I realized, Gray, is to Ryan's point, because we were not given the tools to sell virtually. When the pandemic hit, every weapon we had was taken away from us, pounding the pavement, picking up the phone, because no one wanted to talk on a phone, and networking. Producers were literally paralyzed because they didn't know what to do next. And so we have now realized this is here to stay. Yes, we're going to come back to some live settings, but the way we sell has been changed forever. And that's why I'm so passionate, Gray, about how can you build a presence that your prospects resonate with so that they start raising their hand for you.
Well, let's get into that. You know, I hear that from what you said, it sounds like we have an opportunity for a bit of a reset. I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but I feel like we're in a reset situation right now. 2022 is coming. The masks are coming off. The conferences are opening up. We've got this opportunity to be our authentic sales self. But then also what I do want to talk about is how do we get to the confidence to where we can start doing that? Tell me about that, guys.
You want me to take this ride?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, here's what changed my career, Gray. And I tell people everybody can do this. When I just start opening up who I am, and I do it on platforms like LinkedIn, I did it on a platform like public speaking. I did it through my webinars, through my podcast today. When you open who you are up to your prospects, what happens is you're giving them a chance to know you. Mm-hmm. When you do it consistently enough and the content is valuable and resonates with them, they start liking you. And what happens is if you do it long enough, because there is a game of patience involved, which is something our industry struggles with, they start coming into your pipeline already knowing you and liking you. And I don't know about anybody else on this call, but when I get a prospect in my pipeline already knows me and like me, it is game on. And so for me, Gray, that is the name of the game, is letting people really just, one, get to know me, but two, bring them value before they ever decide to take a meeting with me. And if I just focus on those two things, what happens is my pipeline is filled with people who know me, like me, my sales go up, I enjoy what I do, I love what I do. And at the end of the day, my checkbook loves what I do. And so that's really where the game has changed. We've said it a lot already, I know, but no one's buying from logos anymore. You can't hold your stuff to your chest until prospects hire you anymore. You have got to bring valuable content up front. And the beautiful part about it is the technology we use today, because we have a lot of virtual opportunities. You can get your message in front of hundreds of thousands of people in a matter of seconds. Mm-hmm. That's, to me, where all of this changed. What do you think, Ryan?
Well, and I think that's something you said early on there was so key that we may have glazed over, because you dropped like 15 great nuggets with what you just said right there. So one of the things that you said, in talking about this opportunity that we have to get our message out there, to share with everybody, like, just to be ourselves, it's all so true. But the only way that it produces business for us is something extremely key you said in the middle of there, which was if we're sharing it in front of our prospects. So here's unfortunately, kind of the challenge, and then I'm gonna provide kind of like a practical thought too. So the challenge is two things. First of all, we as human beings love to create fans, right? We love the response when all of our peers are liking our content or commenting on our content. But those peers, like if you're a broker on this call and your broker friends are all liking your stuff, that doesn't do you any good. Or it does you very little good in terms of producing business for you. So we need to think about who is actually responding to what we're doing. So we like that, we take in that dopamine hit, and it's like, oh, it feels really good, I need to keep doing more of this. But then we're going to look back 6 months from now and be like, but I never got a prospect out of it. So we need to, as Andy said, we need to be conscious of the fact that we're putting content out in front of our prospects. And so with something as simple as LinkedIn, and we can go deep down this rabbit hole, but people are like, well, how do I get in front of my prospects? Start engaging in your prospects' content on LinkedIn. Make sure that you're showing up in their feeds in response to the things that they're sharing. Follow their company. Connect with their key leaders, comment on their posts. Like, this is one of the only reasons that I personally pay for LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I don't do it to send 50 blind messages to people. I do it to create lead lists on LinkedIn Sales Navigator, to follow those people so they show up in my feed on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And then when they do pop up with a new piece of content, a post that they share, I comment every single time that I can. So that way they see me in their feed, and then the LinkedIn algorithm sees that I'm engaged into their stuff. So if we do happen to be connected, I'm going to show up in their feeds more often because I've been engaged with them. So you have to be conscious to think about, yes, it's great to create a story, to share that story far and wide, but we want to be strategic to make sure that we're getting it in front of the right people. Now, if you're I know this isn't always the best word to use, but if you're a vendor partner, if you're a carrier rep, if you're a technology partner, if you're some other partner that partners with brokers, LinkedIn is your haven because all the brokers are showing up there. So make sure that you're not just posting stuff about your product. Make sure that you're engaging with their posts, that you're building relationships in that community because they're already there. And so you have a huge opportunity to engage with them and then share your story so they can see it too.
Yeah. So, Gray, I'd actually like to add on what Ryan just said about LinkedIn specifically. Here's what I want everybody to think about with LinkedIn. Number one, what your thoughts are about LinkedIn does not matter. If your prospects are there, you need to be there too. The second thing is here's what I want everybody to think about when it comes to LinkedIn. This will be game changing for you. You look at the number of connections you have, whether it's 200, 500, 5,000, 10,000, I don't care. That is your community, and you are the mayor of that community. Your job is to grow the community with the right residents, because you get to invite the residents by LinkedIn invites. And every time a new resident comes to live in your community, your job is to put up new billboards, which is your content, that they really like. So you get to determine what billboards go up in your community, which is your content. And what happens over time is, with the right residents in the community looking at the right billboards, they're going to keep wanting to get to know you, which is going to lead to business. That is your job on LinkedIn.
I love this conversation about LinkedIn. I feel like they deserve to like do some advertising with us or something. This is pretty great.
No, they make plenty of money. They're good. They're good.
Right. But for real, I take a look at LinkedIn, and Andy, that's a beautiful analogy, or that idea of having it be you're the mayor of this town. I think it really, I can see it in my brain. I'm like, wow, that really makes sense. I need to go into LinkedIn and expand my network. But yeah, no, I think that when we're talking about this change that went from the way we did sales, again, this is something we talked about a little while ago, to the way we're doing sales now, LinkedIn is that virtual universe. You hear about Facebook and the metaverse, and you hear about everything that's going on in the future and where is it going and this and that. But the truth is, where it's going right now is LinkedIn. And it's really great to hear your comments on it. It really expands my understanding of best ways to connect there, certainly with salespeople.
Well, just to kind of further that,
yeah.
It's also really important that we remember that we can't depend on it. And I think that's another danger that I fell into a couple of years ago. I know Andy, also, like, again, we've talked about this, like, and so what we're trying to do, and what we highly recommend for you to do, is figure out how you begin to pull them off of the platform that you don't own. Okay. Like, LinkedIn is wonderful. It's a beautiful, free, unless you pay for Sales Navigator, and then it's less than $1,000 a year, which I highly recommend people spend the money. But it's a wonderful platform to build community, to build relationships, to create opportunities, but you must find ways to pull them off of the platform. And that doesn't mean that you just get their email address and add them to your email list and send them out. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have a strategy to get them off of LinkedIn and into another ecosystem that you own, text communities, Andy and I both have them. Email lists, Andy and I both have them, but we ask people to opt in. We don't add them. Podcasts, again, you're owning that community. Yep. And that content. YouTube channels, again, I know that's a free platform, but they're actually having to physically subscribe. Like, you have to get them off of there, because if not, first of all, you run the risk of eventually losing them if all of a sudden LinkedIn goes away or something else happens. Or you're just always subject to the algorithm that LinkedIn believes is best for their advertising platform, which is why your content doesn't always show up like you want it to. So just keep that in mind. And there's a lot of strategy around how to do that, but just don't make that the end all be all, because it will burn you.
No, I love that. And you talked earlier about the millennials and how they are the big consumers now, and they want a unique experience. And so just locking into LinkedIn and thinking that that's going to be okay, it's not okay. It's not going to be enough. It's going to take more. It's going to take you constantly sort of having to, I don't know, reinvent yourself or reinvent your message. Is that part of what I'm hearing too, guys?
Yeah. The way I envision this is, you have to know, Great. To me, it starts with, who is your ideal prospect? Going back to when I got in 20 years ago, it was all revenue is good revenue. So go after everything. See prospect, sell prospect. That's what we were taught. And I think that game has changed. Not all prospects are good. I think everybody on the call could raise their hand and remember a time you brought in the wrong client And about 6 months later, your account management team wants to kick the crap out of you because it's the wrong client. It has to start with who is your ideal client. And when I work with agencies, you got to answer 3 questions really well. Number one, what problem do you solve for that ideal prospect? What is your clearly defined process you use to solve it? And what's the result your process creates?
Nice.
You have got to know that inside and out, because if you're trying to go after all prospects, guess what happens? Your message is vanilla, it's boring, it's bland, nobody's listening.
I agree.
Get hyper clear about who your ideal prospect is and talk about your differentiators. Here's an analogy I use a lot, and I can't remember where I read this. When most of us were kids and we went down the milk aisle with mom, our options were all milk, 1%, 2% D, vitamin D, whole milk, but it was all milk, right? Milk. Well, that's how your prospects look at all of you. You're commoditized. We're all commoditized. Broker. Well, then one day this thing called almond milk came around. You're like, what in the heck is that? I didn't know they could make milk out of nuts. Got to try that. When it comes to your marketing, be the almond milk. Be the one that prospects look at and go, I don't know what that is, but that's different. We got to try that. That's where the message starts.
I love these discussions because we're jumping off in all kinds of directions, and I hope that people are tracking with this. But again, like one of the things that I love to do is I love to as intently as possible listen to what people are saying and try and really pull out these things that seem to resonate. And so there's this one thing that Andy said again that I'll bet most people. Well, no, I don't want to make an assumption of how you took it, but I know how most of my clients take it to begin with. When Andy asked you what problem you solve, probably you thought that it was something along the lines of you're either producing a better health outcome for the employees that work for the companies that you serve, or that you are reducing healthcare spend for the employers that hired you. And I want to challenge you that that's not enough. I want you to consider that there is a root cause, that there is a root need below the surface of both of those outcomes that the employers really care about. There is a reason why they want to save money. Yes, they want to save money. We all do, right? Like, I don't want to spend $5 a gallon for gas in California. But it's not because necessarily I don't want to spend $5 a gallon. It's because every time my wife's Tahoe costs $120 to fill up, that's one less dinner that I can take my family out to. So it's destroying my family's experience because gas price has gone up. Similarly to you, if you get good at asking the right questions of those prospects early on in the conversation to understand what high costs are actually doing to damage the organization, you can get really good about digging deep into how you can solve that problem. And again, that will help attach you better to that prospect. It will allow you to stand out from the competition because you and your competitor are both going to tell them the same thing. Of course, I'm going to do everything I can to save you money. But when you can say that you're doing everything to save them money because it allows them to achieve an objective that they're after, growth, acquisition of a new property, hiring of some talent that they can't currently afford right now. Those are the things that will truly attach you to that prospect when the opportunity presents itself. So just go deep into that, what problem do you solve question.
So, and then this is Ryan and I play off each other a lot here, guys. Here's how we get really tactical with this. Here's a nugget, for example. To Ryan's point, there is not a CFO or CEO or HR director in the world that wakes up every morning and comes to work saying, I'm going to solve my health insurance. But you know what is a challenge right now? Trying to grow a business in a world of uncertainty where all the employees have the leverage and you have no idea where sales might come from 6 months from now. You find a way to fit yourself in that story, you have got a prospect's ear. So that's to Ryan's point. What problem do you solve? It's not health insurance. It's trying to run a business today with a ton of uncertainty is frustrating. It brings a lot of anxiety and sleepless nights. You solve that problem, you've got some new clients.
I appreciate this, you guys, because I was just going over our agenda today and we were talking about strategizing ideas for sales. And I feel like people you better have been taking notes, because these guys just threw out tons of great ways to strategize how you set yourself up to be the best salesperson you can. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and here's the key, Gray, and not to, again, I hope we're not going off on the wrong tangents.
No, this is perfect.
It kind of goes back to how do you build a good message. I feel like our industry is part math, part storytelling. We've got to know numbers and we've got to be able to tell stories. And one of the things you have to remember is you are not the hero of the story. Your agency is not the hero of the story. You have to find a way to make your prospect the hero and fit what you do, fit your solution, your process into their story. If you can do that, you are going to write a lot of business.
Yep, that's right.
Awesome, guys. It is 11:41. I just want to say thank you. I know we're still got some time left, but I've learned a lot. I want to run out and become a salesperson. I feel like I could make an impact. I'm not even kidding, but seriously, I'm feeling inspired by your messages. I'm going to go back and kind of listen to this again. But I do want to see, Heath, do we have any questions coming in for these guys, specifically, maybe some brokers? I know that sometimes we have like HR professionals on the call, benefit advisors. Do we have anything popping in right now that you want to share or ask Andy and Ryan?
Currently, no questions in the queue, but if folks want to use that Q&A section, you can put your questions in there. Otherwise, you guys can continue the dialogue. It's been very interesting. Appreciate it.
Super interesting. And I do want to plug real quick with both Andy and Ryan. They have some great podcasts. And so Andy's got two, and he's got one that really is fun from a go get it baseball perspective. But then the other one is, what's it called, Andy? Broker's
Voice.
Broker's Voice. And I really enjoyed some of the conversations. You had a conversation with a gentleman working with some Alaska health plans, for example. And we had done a fireside chat on that same topic with Dave Chase a number of months ago. And the NUCA plan, folks, if you are interested, you can NUKA. Tell us about it a little bit, Andy, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's just, I honestly, I wish I could remember all the details, but Daryl Moon is the gentleman. He's built a organization called Foundational Health, or Aspirational Health, excuse me. Daryl's out of Utah, but he built this model after it's one of the Native American populations up in Alaska, that the healthcare system locally had built a system around them to really bring value to the tribe, the native, the community. And what they've been able to do is drastically reduce the cost of healthcare, drastically reduce health issues, and uplift the vitality of the entire community. And so what Daryl's trying to do with Aspirational Health is bring the principles that NUCA health system created up in Alaska to employers in the lower 48 states.
Boom.
And so it's just a really good story of what you're able to do when the healthcare system, the providers, and the members come together.
What's possible out there. And I know and I apologize to everyone that I took a severe left turn from our discussion on sales, but I got so excited about that topic that I just wanted to plug it for Andy. If you get a chance, go onto his podcast, look for the Broker's Voice, and check that one out. It looks like it's a fairly new concept for you, Andy. There's only like 6 or 7 episodes. So yeah. And then Ryan, you've got your podcast as well. It's a lot of fun, a lot of engaging, inspirational talks. Do you have anything to add about that, Ryan?
So I just happen to have the Q&A open, and I would actually love to go there because my podcast is great and I love talking about it. But there's 3 questions that popped up and they're just on my screen right now. And so Jeff, Terry, and Wade, you all asked very similar questions. I'm just going to read them, and I'm going to give you one answer that this was on my heart, Gray, as soon as you said I want to jump into sales. So somebody asked, what's the main challenge brokers face in being lumped in with the status quo brokers? Somebody else said, where and how do I start my prospecting in my market? He's new to being an advisor. And then somebody else said, where do you start when there's only so much time? And all 3 of those, at least my answer to all 3 of those questions is going to be very similar. And this actually goes back to when Gray said, I would love to jump out and become a salesperson. And I don't know if you caught earlier, but Gray said he's kind of newer to the industry. And so I love this question because I spent the last few days with a lot of high-powered advisors And I gave a lot of people the same answer. It is very easy right now, especially like, you know, you're on a platform with 6 Degrees. They are an innovative partner in this space. We're talking self-funding. You're having lots of conversations around pharmacy carve-outs and RBP, and like there's a lot there. And I know, especially for Jeff that asked, like, you know, how do I, you know, differentiate myself from the status quo brokers? And here's what I would like to say to every single one of you is, don't go there yet. And what do I mean by that? Like, I firmly believe that for the most part, the right solution is blowing up the current way that we're delivering healthcare. Absolutely. But I believe that every single one of you, and for the other 90 some odd, 100 some odd people that are listening right now, the way that you are going to make a difference is by being a human being connecting with other human beings.
Yes.
Pick up the phone and have conversations. Don't be worried about what you don't know. There's either somebody in your office or there's a partner out there like 6 Degrees that will be there to stand with you when things get technical. But even in this, even in this idea of differentiating yourself, I always drop his name out there because most people know him on the innovative side. Like David Contorno and I have had this conversation many times. He is one of the top advisors in terms of disruption and innovation in the marketplace. And he had the same problem. He was trying to dangle creative solutions in front of people that had no idea who he was. And so if you want to get started or start all over again or differentiate yourself, go back to what Andy and I have been saying this whole time. Be yourself. Share your story. Get people to know you, like you, and trust you. Every single time you pick up the phone, the thing that you should be thinking about is there is a human being on the other end of that line that ultimately wants to be treated like a human being. Ask them questions. Get to know them. Be interested in them. If you see an opportunity to blow up their 750 life fully insured plan and take them self-funded, fine, but don't sell your soul on that. Build the relationship first. Win the opportunity to get into conversation with them, and then slowly over time, show them what's possible. But don't go in guns blazing because you haven't earned the right to do that with them. So be a human being, build a relationship, share your story. That is what resonates. If you, and this is so weird for me to say, but if you know Andy or I at all, if you followed us on LinkedIn, if you've seen us somewhere and you like some part of or all of what we have to say, it's because this is what we've done. If we haven't worked together, you don't know how I coach, but you know how I share my story. You know who I am as a person. You know my values because I put them all out there. Andy's the same way. If you want to know what Andy likes to do outside of coaching, just go on his social. You'll see that he loves to cycle, that he played baseball. Like those are the things that connect us to other people. So treat your prospective clients like human beings, have conversations, ask questions, build relationships. And then over time, you will be given the opportunity to listen to what that root cause problem was and provide a solution. And if you don't know the answer, you can find many people in this industry that will stand alongside you, that will go to battle and will help you disrupt whatever is necessary to produce the best outcome for that client.
Heck yeah. I love it. I was literally on the edge of my seat, Ryan, when you were starting. I was like, oh my God, what's the secret sauce? And then all of a sudden you're like, just be authentic, be yourself. Yep. It takes time. Yeah. And I get it. Andy, I know you want to chip.
I'm literally like biting my laptop right now.
You should have just yelled over me.
Bring it, Andy. What you got?
Well, no, Brian, what Ryan said was beautiful. And what I'm about to say, I think might be the most important, thing I share in these 60 minutes. And that's this. And this goes back to the questions that were answered. How do you differentiate? How do you get away from commoditization? Where do you start prospecting? All that stuff. And when I have only so much time. Number one, to Ryan's point, you have to become a better storyteller. So with all these great strategies out there, like what 6 Degrees offers and the pharmacy solutions and all that, you have to be able to tell them in a way that fits into the prospect story. There's so many opportunities out there that aren't being sold because the advisors aren't telling the story the right way. But here's where I'm starting. How do you differentiate? It comes down to this. This is the formula I used when I moved to Colorado. Who's my ideal prospect? What's the problem I'm solving? What's the process I'm going to use to solve that problem? And then what is the result my process creates? And then I said, okay, great. How am I going to share that message? Well, I have 2 choices. I can go linear, I can go exponential. Linear is I'm going to pick up the phone and make a bunch of cold calls. Linear because if I want to connect or try to connect with 100 people, I got to make 100 phone calls, and that's going to take 2 to 3 hours. I could go pound the pavement, but I can only knock on one door at a time. Or I could go exponential. I could get my message in front of a ton of people on social media. I could get my message in front of dozens and hundreds of people on webinars, public speaking, you name it. And I can get a lot more done in less time by going exponential with my message. So for the people who lack time, you got to use time wisely. Get that message out in front of a lot of people fast, and you're going to get more people to raise their hand quicker. And then when you mix it, to Ryan's point, when you mix it with your human side, you will generate a ton of business because here's the point, guys. Here's the punchline. I know a lot of the people on this call. Some of you represent large houses. Most of you don't. You are never going to win the game playing the resources and size game. And by the way, your customer service is not your differentiator. But when you can stand out with your content and let people get to know you, you're going to walk into sales opportunities already looking different to the prospect. And that is how you go win big business from the big boys.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome. Well, we've only got a few minutes left, and I really feel like I don't want to sidetrack it anymore. I want to keep it on topic. Heath, is there anything else you want to add to, or questions you have for Andy or Ryan? I'm so stoked you guys are here.
Well, we finally got our video, so I get to show off my cool fireplace that
Okay, there you go.
I took a picture of.
The haircut looks good.
Yeah, it's getting a little deep on the corners, but we're holding on strong in the late 40s. No, it's been a lot of fun, guys. I appreciate it. Appreciate everyone battling through some of the video difficulties here. But there was one other question that jumped in. I don't know if you guys can see it on your screen, or I can read it off to you. And I don't completely disagree with the point of view here, but you are seeing employees that I feel do have a bigger voice right now, just because it's difficult to hire and or some of the movements in the labor force. But what are you guys seeing out there on that?
So I think that, Andy talked about that a little bit. I think it is really an interesting thing to consider. Employees do have a lot of say-so, or a lot of influence into what's happening right now. But I think what's really important for us to think about is ultimately everyone's after the same thing. The employer wants to reduce costs, and to one degree or another wants to make sure their employees are happy. On the employee side of things, they want to reduce their costs because costs continue to shift in their direction, whether that's at the premium level or at the provider level. And they want a better experience for themselves, right? So if you think about how we solve that problem, ultimately, it's we find ways to communicate that we can do both. And we're like, it's not pie in the sky. There was poor advising done overall over the last 5 or so years, when the way that we were trying to help the employers was by increasing deductibles to some ridiculous amounts, which destroyed employee experience.
Yep.
They couldn't even go to the doctors. But now we're starting to see, and I know this isn't like this in all markets, like in California, we are still just handcuffed to a pretty much capitated market. So we don't get the same creativity that the rest of the country does. But we can provide better health outcomes. We can show them how direct access to a direct primary care doctor actually does wonders for employee experience, and it can actually reduce overall costs because we can navigate where they're getting referred to the doctor. We can show them that by getting them the best possible prescriptions, by maybe going in a different direction, gets the employees what they need, reduces the employer's cost. So we're no longer, again, like the overreaction to like, I'm going to cut your costs by just jacking up deductibles and shifting costs to the employees. That's gone. And I love it. Yeah. I love the fact that we now have to put our heads together and say, we can drive better outcomes. And as a matter of fact, we can do that while reducing costs, or we can reduce costs and drive better outcomes. And one is going to support the other in the long term. So we're ripping the Band-Aids back off that unfortunately were put on. And now we're starting to show that we have long-term solutions. But again, you guys, you can't go after that all at once. So step in, build their trust, earn their trust, allow them to see that you actually care about them as people and them as an organization. And then you can slowly start to introduce some of these solutions.
Heck yeah. No, that's beautiful. And, plan design, really looking at ways to not only help the employer, but help the employee. I mean, it's out there. It's complicated. It might be difficult to find, but it sounds like it's out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and too, I think one of the things, sorry, but like if you're a broker, find the right partners to work with, because your partners could be doing a significant amount of the education to your employer groups on what solutions are available. You don't need to, nor should you spend time trying to learn everything. But if you partner with great people, they can step into your prospecting meetings. They can step into your sales presentations. They can step into your renewal process, and they can engage in the conversation. So you don't need to know that. There's nothing wrong with saying, I have an expert standing alongside of me that's going to help drive the best outcome. As a matter of fact, that's the most responsible thing that you can do. So I would just say, make sure you're aligned with the right partners, because that is going to be the way forward. And to Andy's point, like, you don't need to compete with the big houses. As a matter of fact, I feel like being small and nimble has huge advantages, because you get to dictate your partnerships in ways that they don't. So you have a lot of opportunity ahead of you.
Awesome. Any last remarks, Andy? We've got about
I felt like the need right now. I used to use a presentation when I was advising that I called the "Do you believe what I believe" presentation. And to Ryan's point, as an advisor right now, you got to understand what's going on. There's three main reasons, in my opinion, why it's impossible for most employers to control their health insurance costs, which is going to be more important now than ever. We've got people telling us we're on the verge of economic collapse in this country. So finding ways to save money is going to be ultra important. And the three challenges are: the medical loss ratio rule changed everything. Carriers no longer cared about saving money. They're not incented to that. Number two is the healthcare system, cost and quality all over the map. How in the heck do you solve that? Right. And then number three, when you're handing medical ID card to your employees every year that are really nothing more than an unlimited company credit card because they can go wherever they want and spend whatever they want, how in the world do you solve the cost problem?
Yeah.
And to Ryan's point, it's come down to three ways to do it, which, by the way, we advisors have aided. Shop the carriers, increase out of pockets, and ask employees to pay more. We have got to be better as advisors. This is why solutions like 6 Degrees exist. Find ways to help employers build better health plans for less money today, and you will stand out, because employees have leverage. They want perks, they want good benefits, and employers are going to want to save money. You do those two things well, you're going to have a hell of a year and a hell of a career ahead of you.
Yep. Well, heck yeah, go 2022. It's an exciting year. I don't know if you folks know it, but it is the year of the tiger, and there's a lot of great potential for getting stuff done, succeeding wildly or failing wildly. So, keep in mind that we've got a big year ahead of us. Thank you, Christy. Great discussion. I totally agree. Folks, Fireside Chat, we've been doing this for about 1.5 years. It's been a ton of fun. Go check out our past webinars. We've got some really fun topics. I leaned on one earlier with Dave Chase. We've seen Dave Chase a couple of times. We do have upcoming Fireside Chats coming as well. It's 12 o'clock right now. I know you guys are dropping out quick, but I do want to mention our website, 6degreeshealth.com. Check out our webinars. We do have future ones coming on all sorts of interesting subjects, including things like payment integrity, learning about reference-based pricing, which is what we do, but also diving into some of the nitty gritty of what's going on in the healthcare world nowadays. Clearly, Andy and Ryan gave us a piece of that. I literally was on the edge of my chair for a couple of times today. I'm not even kidding. I wish you could have seen me. I am not going to become a salesperson. Maybe I will, but thank you folks so much. We had so much fun having you, and I would love to see you again someday. Maybe peel out a different conversation about something different, but so much fun. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys.
Thanks
Hey,
for being
guys.
here.